about the material. So I undertook the job of being an editor for the material, and I edited it as best I could. I went through every sentence of all of the documents and put footnotes in the documents for the sake of clarification and definition of the various things that mentioned, partially to kind of verify for myself whether or not anything in the documents could be demonstrated to be factual. So,
did you at any point, Lawrence, seek the counsel of anyone else in the UFO field while you were working on this project?
Yeah, no, I absolutely did not. And the reason is because of one thing I've observed about the whole phenomena of UFOs and extraterrestrials and all of that sort of thing is there doesn't ever seem to be any proof. I mean, nobody seems to be able to prove anything, no matter whether you've got physical evidence or video evidence or testimony or not. It all kind of boils down to a subjective opinion on the part of the person looking at the material as to whether or not they think it's credible.
Okay, all right.
So that was one thing. That's one conclusion that I came to.
All right, let me ask you to hold on just a minute, if you would, Lawrence. Have to take a break. We'll come right back. My special guest is Lawrence Spencer, the editor of what may turn out to be one of the most important books ever, called Alien Interview, a book based on personal letters, commentary, and transcripts provided by Matilda O'Donnell McElroy. We'll be right back. Okay, this is fascinating, and as you heard Lawrence Spencer mention, there were certainly a number of young women at Roswell at the time of the crash, or crashes, and so we know now of two of them who have come forward. The one I alluded to earlier via tape recordings, and this one, which is an extraordinary compendium of personal letters and commentary and transcripts, government transcripts, edited by Lawrence R. Spencer. Now, there's on the page, when you click on Mr. Spencer's name, you go to alieninterview.org, and there's an excerpt from a letter written by the late Matilda O'Donnell McElroy, a retired U.S. Army Air Force nurse, which is reproduced in the new book, Alien Interview. If you want to go ahead and read this letter, please do.
I'd like to read the letter. I'd actually like to read the entire letter. What's on the website is just a brief excerpt.
Well, please.
Let me just preface that by saying that when I started going through all the materials for my own personal edification, I was very, very skeptical, to say the least. One of the reasons I was really skeptical about the material is because she states in the letter that all of the interviews, although they were conducted under the intense scrutiny of the military and other government intelligence agencies and so forth at the time, who were present and supervised her interviews, she says that all of the interview activity that was conducted between her and the alien was telepathic, because the alien was not able to verbalize, didn't have physical capability of speaking, because of the nature and construction of the alien's body, which is covered in great detail in the book itself. So,
and yet she of all the people there apparently was the one selected to be addressed.
According to her, she was the only one who was able to communicate with the being, and the only one with whom the being was willing to communicate. The reasons for that will become apparent as you read the book and the transcripts and so forth. But the thing the reason I decided to move forward with it was because when I started going through and reading the material and trying to place footnotes in the material to authenticate the names of individuals she mentions, which are numerous, the dates, the places, events cited in the transcripts and so forth, I was really amazed to find that every single thing in there, including all of the identities, dates, and everything of the individuals mentioned were factual, which really then I started wondering, wow, maybe this is really for real. So that was very surprising to me, to be honest. So what I did in order to make it as level a playing field as possible, I took all of the footnotes I put in the book almost entirely from Wikipedia.org, the Internet Encyclopedia, because I take that to be kind of a generic, universal source of information. It's put together by lots and lots of different people.
Sure.
They have no special point of view or slant on any subject.
It's kind of like the Wild West.
Yeah, well, it's the Wild West of encyclopedias, I suppose. Anyway, for me, that was as fair a way of footnoting any materials I could see, and everyone has universal access to Wikipedia. They don't have to take my word for anything. They can just check it themselves, right?
Very good.
So let me just read a little brief explanation that I put in the introduction to the book. After I read the material, I wrote a brief.
Good. Let's do that. We have about 2 minutes to the break. We'll take the break, come back, and then ask you if you would be kind enough to read the letter she enclosed.
Very good.
Okay, go ahead.
So part of the introduction, I say, fortunately, subjective reality does not require evidence or proof. Therefore, I decided to write this book in order to pass along a subjective communication I received from Mrs. McElroy to other people who may be interested in it. Personally, I'm not assuming that anything I received from Mrs. McElroy is in any way authentic, with the exception of the envelope and the paper inside the envelope. I cannot substantiate any of it other than what I just explained.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed, I can't truly verify that there was ever such a person as Mrs. McElroy other than the voice I heard on the phone. Was back in 1998. The voice could have been anyone in actuality.
It wasn't
Personally,
mine.
I do not have a vested interest in USO research, which I mentioned.
It
is not my intention to justify, explain, remedy, or any disability to perceive or understand the mysteries of extraterrestrials or UFOs, government agendas, or spiritual abilities, nor is it intended to educate, persuade, or promote to anyone that any of these phenomena exist. Furthermore, what I may or may not think about all of this is irrelevant. Basically, my opinion is that your opinion, your viewpoint is just as valuable and just as true as mine is.
That's an amazing disclaimer.
Well, I'm not trying to, philosophically, I propose a philosophical premise in the book, The Oz Factors, that what is true for you is true for you. It may not be true for me, but I'm not seeking agreement here. I'm just trying to put the information out there so anybody can read it and make their own judgment.
Well, in a way, you handle this in the most pure journalistic ethic you could. That's.
Well, Jeff, I think that's actually the reason ultimately that she sent me the material, because she read my book and she understands my philosophical premise is what I just explained. I don't have an agenda. I think the whole subject of vested interest and the influence of vested interest on the history of the world is really the subject of my book, The Oz Factors. So I think she trusted that I, among many people, would put the material out as is without trying to put any kind of a spin on it
or exploit it. Yeah, I know. I see that very clearly. When you spoke to her on the phone in 1998, and she said she couldn't talk about anything because she was under national security, whatever. Did you hear anything in her voice at that time which suggested to you that there was a big story hidden away back there? Or did she just kind of toss it off?
I really didn't at all. I just sort of didn't think much of it at the time. She was a charming lady, obviously literate and educated. She was a surgical nurse when she was in the Army. So I was delighted to talk to her, but I really didn't give it a second thought.
Okay, very good. Well said, and very interesting. And I might just add as a caveat here, there are still alive others who were at Roswell who may well have been involved, not necessarily to this degree, but to some substantial degree, who are still living under the national security stricture. And we would urge those people, if they are listening or anyone who knows them are listening, to urge them to come forward with the material. We'll be right back. Big story. alien engineering.